Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action.
Hi, y'all. This is Jerry Williams, a.k.a. TV Jerry. Great news for those who like subtitles to augment their viewing experience. Netflix has introduced a new subtitle option that shows only the spoken dialogue, no descriptions of music or sound effects, which I'll certainly appreciate. They're starting with the new season of You and will expand it to other shows.
The boss at that time said, "Hey, I want you to enter the Emmys." And I said, "I've never thought about it." She says, "Well, I'm paying for it. Just go grab some stuff." And there'd been a big winter storm up on the East Coast the weekend before, and I happened to be working. I grabbed the video from that, sent it in, got a thing, said, "You've been nominated. Come to the dinner."
That was John Bernier talking about how he entered and won an Emmy Award. John just wrapped up a 41-year career as chief meteorologist for WRIC-TV, the local ABC affiliate. I caught up with him the day after his final broadcast, and we talk about his experiences with weather, TV, teaching at VCU, and his love of running.
Sifter Review of the Week.
G20 on Amazon Prime Video. In February, Angela Bassett played POTUS on Zero Day. Now it's Viola Davis's turn to step into this science fiction role as a black woman president. She heads to the G20 summit to make an important financial statement. Pretty quickly, a terrorist group invades the proceedings, taking the world leaders hostage. Of course, she manages to escape with a small group and calls on her former military training to save the day. Davis brings her gravitas to the role while doing a good job of kicking ass. On the plus side, the action scenes are plentiful and well staged. On the negative, this film is pushing the boundaries of credibility. There are so many situations where the response should be, "Really?" Even so, the plot's numerous implausibilities are enveloped in lots of daring escapes and furious hand-to-hand combat. If you can look past the absurdity that abounds, there's a cracking good time. I gave G20 3 out of 5 stars. Now, John, I didn't realize until just a couple of days ago that we're recording this the morning after your last broadcast.
Yep, that was it last night. And the way it was timed out was it made it exactly 41 years to the day from when I started at Channel 8.
Was that your plan?
It was actually my plan. We were discussing when to have the last day, and was like, let's do it this day because it made it full circle. Yesterday was also the 35th anniversary of Channel 8 becoming WRIC-TV. Beforehand, many people know it was WXCX.
Yeah, I remember the good old days back in, what was it, something Manor in Petersburg.
Blandford Manor.
Blandford Manor, yes. I remember back in actually, I was on Channel 6 in those days.
Yeah.
So how was it last night? Were there tears? Were you choked up?
No. No. No, it was a little longing in the heart, yes, but no, there were no tears. This was something that has been in the works for multiple months. The decision was made last fall, and it was my decision.
Right.
Not pushed out, went out on my terms.
There you go. Yeah, good, good. Obviously, you had a BSA in meteorology from Massachusetts, magna cum laude. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
How did you get into weather? What made that start?
It was as a child. It was, in all honesty, a very bad case of hero worship. There was a gentleman named Don Kent in Boston, Massachusetts. WBZ-TV was there for a long, long time. We're talking 40 years. He really was one of the first television weather broadcasters in the United States. My parents said, I was like, the wild toddler, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. And they said he'd come on TV and I would stop cold and be transfixed.
Wow.
And then I got into the science of it. Got a little bit older, went to college, and then got into this part of the business.
Well, now let me ask you on a little side note. Since you were in Boston, do you remember a DJ named Jerry Williams?
Yes, worked at, he became a talk show host at WBZ.
Yeah, many years ago in the 1969 or 1970, I did Richmond's first progressive rock radio show called Veronica Lake. And he called me one night on the show live, which was kind of wild, out of the blue. So you went right out of college, right into being you didn't go right out of college into being a weather forecaster.
No, I did go straight out.
You did? How did you get into sports writing?
Well, sports writing, I started that at the age of 16.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
So I started that at the age of 16, worked for 2 newspapers doing that through the last couple of years of high school and college, and then went from college into that. So, I've got between the sports writing and the TV, we're talking a long, long time.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I started doing my first radio show when I was in high school too. So I guess
Right.
it just shows once it's in your blood, you can't help yourself.
Yep, that's very true.
I know you went all over the place, South Dakota, Indiana, Cleveland. How did you end up in Richmond? And what was your first impression when you heard Richmond, Virginia?
First impression I heard Richmond, Virginia was it's going to be warm.
After all those places, yeah.
I will say this. I came from Cleveland, Easter, it was still chilly, it was still kind of gray, winterous. Came down here and it's like everything's in bloom and it's bright and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like, wow, this is different.
What about the culture? Or you just cared about the weather? You didn't care about the people.
You get to learn about the people in a little bit. And I was, had enough people who had moved in here to say, hey, Richmonders can be a little standoffish at the beginning, but then once eventually they will start to warm up.
Right. And did you find that the case?
That's what they did. Yeah. There was a lot of interesting things going on with the way Richmond and Chesterfield County and those places have been hodgepodge constructing, where all of a sudden you go across an intersection. All of a sudden you have a road that changes names, which, there's a great one in Chesterfield County. You've got Elkhart Road. You go across Hull Street, it becomes Hicks Road. You go across Providence Road, it becomes Reams Road.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we're doing.
So obviously you were down at Petersburg for a while, and then you moved to the Arboretum. And I remember hearing that there was a tornado almost immediately.
In 1984, there was about 2 weeks after I got here was a tornado in Petersburg.
Oh, right. Okay. Right.
That came through. The cemetery across the street from Blandford Manor did a lot of tree damage. I can remember that because it was the last episode, like one of the last episodes of Happy Days. And then actually, we moved to the Arboretum April 23rd, 1990. And then right after that was the first tornado to hit Kmart at South Park.
I remember that. Yeah.
Because remember, well, you're probably thinking of the big one, which is the one that hit Walmart.
Oh, okay. Big box store. Okay, right.
But there was one in May of 1990 that hit Kmart. There was the big one in August 6, 1993 that took out the Walmart. It also hit the Kmart. And then there was another one when you had one in 1998 that also hit the Kmart there. So, that store was cursed.
Yeah. I have to say, I'm impressed. Not only the year, but the dates. That's impressive. How do you keep all that in your mind? Or are you just got that kind of natural affinity?
Not 1998, 2008 for the third one. It just stored that it just good with numbers.
Now, in 1993, you won the Emmy for Best Weathercaster for the Mid-Atlantic region. How do they judge that? Do they just watch your shows, or is there something more involved than just?
I think you submit the shows and they watch the tapes, and kind of the way the story that came along was the boss at that time said, "Hey, I want you to enter the Emmys." I said, "I've never thought about it." She says, "Well, I'm paying for it. I'm paying for it. Go grab some stuff and enter." And there'd been a big winter storm up on the East Coast the weekend before, and I happened to be working. I grabbed the video from that, sent it in, got a thing, said, "You've been nominated. Come to the dinner." And they announced that I'd won.
Yeah, that's great. Now, and I know you've been through so many different weather challenges, the hurricanes and the tornadoes and everything. What would you say is one of the most memorable from your point of view as an on-air personality having to deal with it?
You have to look at, difficult forecasting or impact. If you really want to go difficult forecasting, that's kind of, we can go back, like one of the most difficult forecasts people don't realize was the snowstorm in January of 2000, which was the one that basically everybody got wrong, because when the weather data comes in, the computers look at it to see if, they're trying to find bad data. And there was data out of Atlanta that looked so outrageous that the computer models purged it out, said this has got to be, bad files coming. That went into the computer models. The computer models came out and they said, this computer model is saying there isn't going to be a whole lot of snow. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, this isn't right. It's saying there's going to be like an inch of snow for us here. Forecaster at the Weather Service down in Wakefield, Wayne Albright and I are talking, and we're like, this doesn't look right. It's like, we're worried this is going to be more. So the computer model is saying Richmond's going to get an inch of snow. I'm thinking, it's not right. I'm going 4 inches of snow. And then finally we got better data coming in late that night. It was like, holy cow, now we're up to 12 inches of snow. And I mean, there was actually a forecaster at the Weather Service office in Washington, D.C., who made the comment. He said, this is the worst computer model performance in history, which is, you sometimes you don't air out the dirty laundry. He got called to National Weather Service headquarters to shoot out for that. But eventually what they did was they went back and they reran the computer models, forcing them to accept that data.
Right.
The computers thought was bad out of Atlanta, and then actually spun up the correct scenario. As for the most impactful storms, no matter what, Hurricane Isabella is number one.
Right.
Just because of, you had people here without power for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That was actually the severity of that storm was not really caused by the hurricane, but it was caused by, in a way, like what happened with Helene in North Carolina, things that had happened beforehand, because we had this horrible drought from 99 to 2002. And so all of a sudden now the ground is really got a lot of moisture in it. So it's not holding us in. So these trees have been weakened by basically being starved. And now, there's nothing to hold them in. So they were, if you remember back then, these trees were coming up root ball and all. They weren't snapping. They were just coming right out of the ground.
Yeah.
That's most impactful. And then you've got to put the derecho in there in 2012, just because that was just such a wild event coming through.
So when you're on your own, you're getting ready for another day to go running, which you do a lot or something.
Yeah.
What app do you use to get the weather when you're not at work?
One of the best ones for the public to use is actually the College of DuPage in Illinois. Weather.cod.edu. It's broken down to categories. It's got a very usable interface. You can go and you can look at radar. You can look at satellite. You can look at a composite radar. You can look at a local radar. They won't have the warnings on top of that for you. And then if you want to go look at forecasts, you can go in and you can get the what's called the NDFD data, which is National Digital Forecast Database, and see how that is. It won't give you like, what's this forecast if I click on the map for short pump? What's the short pump forecast? Well, that's actually an interpolation. But it will say you can look at the ones for Richmond, you can look at the zone forecasts. If you want to go look at the models for free, it's a place called Tropical Tidbits. It's run by Levi Cohen. You can go there and look at the models.
Footnote.
I'll have links to both of those websites on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
The problem with that becomes everybody having access to it in their basement. Now you have the 14-year-old with the internet access in the parents' basement saying, look, this computer model says in 384 days, there's going to be 16 inches of snow over us. Yeah, that's a trend. That's not what's happening. But that's one of the problems we have to fight with social media nowadays.
One of many. Yes, I know. So what would you say is your most interesting or weirdest fan encounter?
Two of them. One time, my son and I, we're talking, this is 30 years ago. We are in New York City. We're walking down to visit somebody. And all of a sudden, I hear somebody scream my name. And it's somebody across the street who's running across Lexington Avenue. He was someone who was from Richmond.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been recognized, seen, a couple of times in foreign countries on vacation, too.
Oh, cool. My craziest was, since you didn't ask, my craziest was standing at a urinal. Somebody standing next to me saying, hey, I know you from TV. I'm like, okay. That was a little weird.
That's a little weird encounter. By the way, you're talking about the one in the urinal. There was one time in New Orleans, went into a restaurant, and the person said, what's the forecast? I ignored him. And he said, what's the forecast? I know. He said, what's the weather forecast? He says, I don't know. And he looked at me and he said, you're John Bernier, shouldn't you know? And it was actually people from Dominion who were at the same conference. The conference recognized me. So.
Oh, okay, cool. You've been teaching all these years. Why do you like to teach too?
Because you interact with young people, and they're fun. I work with at VCU, which is where I've taught since 2003. I've had a lot of people who have become school teachers. One of the things I ask is this course about meteorology with school teachers is, what are little kids scared of in the weather? And they all say, well, they're all scared of thunder. Your job is to teach them thunder is their buddy. You don't have thunder without having lightning. Thunder's the good guy telling you that lightning, the bad guy, is coming and that you need to you need to go away from the storm. I said, you can explain that to a 5-year-old, to a 6-year-old, to a 7-year-old. You're teaching them something that is very practical for their safety and teaching them something about science. And I even talk about how when you use hurricanes, tracking hurricanes are a perfect multitude of school lessons. Okay, so when you're plotting a hurricane on a map, you're essentially using graph paper. So now you've actually got a little lesson in geometry. Then you're getting geography in there. And then you can say, okay, this is going towards the island of Guadalupe. What can you tell me about that country? So now you start learning maybe a little bit of sociology, a little bit of demographics about there. And then you can advance on it. You can go up into statistics and stuff. So that's a thing where you think you're just talking about teaching about weather. You can take that and you can branch off a multitude of aspects.
That's a great idea. That's very smart.
Yeah.
So have any of your former students become weather anchors or people that we would have heard of or people that you're proud of? I'm sure you're proud of all of them. Let me restate that.
Proud of all of them. A lot of people are engineers and scientists. I'm having people who go into a lot of teaching. A couple others have gone on. I have one who actually became a television producer for a while and worked with us at Channel 8. We've had some people who've done some good things. A lot of them are school teachers.
So are you going to keep teaching or are you retired from that now too?
Teaching, planning on teaching next semester. Probably next semester it's going to be a virtual class, and then we'll see after that.
So what else are you going to be doing? It's funny because, as you know, I interviewed Jim Duncan when he retired last year, a couple years ago now.
Footnote.
In case you're new to town, Jim Duncan was the chief weather anchor on NBC 12 for 40 years and retired in 2022. I'll include a link to his interview on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com. And he's still out there. He's showing up on weather, WSLS and other places around. Are you going to kind of sneak back in? Maybe they'll pull you back in, as they say in The Godfather.
Pull me back in, cameos. That's a good possibility. Not going to say definite, but that's a possibility that's going to happen. I'm going to pop up maybe here or there on occasion. One of the things that tie into this whole retirement thing is we have a new grandchild.
Congratulations.
It's number 3. And his parents are a little older. It's my daughter and her husband. They are actually first-time parents in their 40s, which is becoming more common now.
Right.
Much more common. In fact, someone recently said that the number of people over 40 having children now exceeds teenagers.
Thank heavens.
Which I would say is a good thing.
Yeah.
But they are both very well established in their careers, and they have very demanding careers in what they do. So they're going to need some help with that. So we're going to help with that. And then, and actually, my other 2 grandchildren will be around this summer too, which will be nice to see them. Haven't seen them in a while.
Oh, great. But you're going to keep running, of course.
I'm going to keep running.
Were you at the 10K? By the way, the 10K turns right at our house at Chantilly and Monument. We live right on that block.
No, 10K is, to be honest, it's too many people.
Yeah.
When you get into, and trust me, I'm not super competitive. I mean, I am chairman of the old and slow division. But when you get into giant sized races like that, it becomes kind of hard. It takes a while to get going. One of the ones that I've done, and I've done it with my daughter and her husband, is a race up in Baltimore called the Celtic Solstice, which is in December. It's a 5-mile race at Druid Hill Park. Keyword is Druid Hill. It's got a lot of hills, and that one has like 3,500 people in it. Well, for the first mile, it's a traffic jam. So unless you're one of the elite people out at the front, you're running in this giant mass of people. So it slows you down. It's fun to do. And the one thing you got to watch in a lot of these races is you got to watch for little kids because, they all bolt out and they're darting around. And it's like, oh, we don't want to wipe each other out.
Yeah.
So that's it. So sometimes some of the smaller races are a little fun to do. When you cook for some of the smaller races, if you're new in an area, it's like, you may get lost if there aren't many marshals on the course. I mean, there was one race I did that had maybe 40 people in it. I had to run hard as heck because I didn't know the course. And it's like I got to keep somebody in sight so I can figure out where I'm going, or I may end up in the next county or something.
So, any final thoughts or comments on your retirement and your career?
It's been a great run. We came to Richmond. We came to enjoy it, came to like it, came to make it the home for our children where they were raised. And as they say with all things change and all things must end. This is the time that it must end.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. So, one question I always like to ask everybody, especially now that you're not working, what do you like to watch? What are you watching right now? It doesn't have to be an ABC show. Is something you're watching right now, streaming, or a movie you've seen lately that you like?
Right now, this time of the year, two things going on. The Red Sox are on,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's baseball season. Got to put the Red Sox on, and also it's the Stanley Cup in hockey.
Which
And
I don't know anything about sports, so
but here's the interesting thing, Jerry. When you look at the business of television, and television business is changing.
right.
You put the streaming word out there. You even look now at things constantly evolve. Sports is probably the key to broadcast right now. Sports and news, because if you're going to watch a baseball game, or you're going to watch a football game, or you're going to watch a hockey game, how are you going to watch it? Live.
Right.
You're not going to. Well, I think I'm just going to DVR that Colorado Avalanche Dallas Stars game. You're going to watch it live. You're not going to DVR it. If you watch it live, what do you also have to watch live?
Commercials.
You got to watch the commercials. How you have the NFL games that are on Amazon and Netflix.
Right.
What happens if someone like Google, who's got pockets deeper than deep, comes in and says, "We're going to buy the entire NFL season,
Mm.
put it on YouTube. We're going to make the money because we're going to sell subscriptions all it." Then what happens to Channel 8, where I work, Channel 6, where you work, Channel 12? What happens to them?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And then the other thing is then the stations are turning into long daytime news channels. You'll have the primetime program, but the daytime is going more and more and more to news programming. If you think about it, you used to have 6 and 11 p.m. news. Then you got a morning newscast from 6 to 7 or 6:30 to 7. Then you got a noon. So you really had 2 hours of news a day. I mean, now just in the evenings at just the early evenings at Channel 8, it's 2.5 hours. And then there are places in bigger cities, not Richmond, there are bigger cities that are starting their morning news at 4 a.m.
Wow.
And you're seeing newscasts at 7 p.m., 7:30 p.m., 3 p.m. in the afternoon, 2 p.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. in the morning, 11 a.m. in the morning. I can see it coming in one way or another to where there's going to be 4:30 in the morning all the way to 6:30 at night, some kind of local news programming or regionalized news. And then you look at some of the broadcast companies that are starting to combine and regionalize newscasts.
And you look at print too. Same thing with the newspapers that we used to have.
Yeah,
So yeah, the world is changing in all that media.
right. Newspapers made the mistake that a lot of other media outlets have also done, but are trying to figure out how to claw it back. So your newspaper, be it the Richmond paper, the Cleveland paper, the Boston paper, the Washington paper, the Sioux Falls, South Dakota newspaper, their main source of revenue is the ads.
Right.
And their main expense, of course, is the print, running those printing presses. That's the main expense. And what happened was when they said, we'll put our news stories on a website so people can go to the website. Well, that's essentially the manager of Wendy's standing outside his store and saying, here, have a free Frosty. And then nobody's coming inside to buy the burger, the salad, or the french fries because they're getting the Frosty for free. So they didn't firewall all of that. So, television naturally had its built-in advertising where you had to watch it. That's why if you go to a television website, you click on a story, and you want to get video, and there's a pre-roll ad that you have to deal with.
Right.
Newspapers now going behind paywalls, but you can get some pretty good subscriptions at a pretty good price if you want to play their game. Local newspapers, and I worked in small local newspaper, they're vanishing left and right.
Yeah, sadly.
And now the problem is going to become who are going to be the bigger newspapers that survive. I mean, the three obvious ones are New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal.
Right.
Boston Globe, which, again, if you were to buy it at list price, is like $30 a month for, online subscription.
Well, that's about what we pay for the Times Dispatch, too, actually.
Yeah, but you can get it cheaper, you get the right sign up time. Those are one of the ones going to survive. When you get down to, I think the Cleveland Plain Dealers not putting out a print edition anymore and stuff, and I can see that happening, like newspapers, print editions. So there is going to be, with this revolution in communications, that you've got, you get all your right there. You can click and get a whole bunch of stuff to look at. That there's going to be a lot of challenges in the media across the board. Radio's gone through its whole phase.
And we won't even get started on AI, because that's another whole podcast.
That's another whole thing in there.
Yeah.
AI is going to be interesting and potentially very dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
So are you going to still check out the news at 6, 7, or 11 now just to see what they're up to? Or are you going to just say, I'm done, I'm going to go for a run?
It all depends what's going on during the day.
Right.
It's one of those things where, I know when my father was still alive, and this is, he died 12 years ago. Do you want to watch the weather? Do you want to watch the weather? And he'd be going to click on that. And I'm like, Dad, I don't need to do that. I know what the sources of all the raw information. If I want to know what the weather's going to be, I can go look at the raw information.
Right. Well, John, I want to thank you so much for this. This has been great. Congratulations on your incredible 41 years. And I look forward to hearing about 41 more years in retirement and running.
All right. Thank you, Jared.
That was John Bernier, who was chief meteorologist for WRIC-TV since 1984. I'll have links to the weather apps he mentioned on the webpage for this show at TV Jerry.
Coming soon. In theaters.
Thunderbolts, the latest from Marvel, features a group of anti-heroes in a death trap, with a cast including Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, David Harbour, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Rust. Surely you remember the tragic shooting of the film's cinematographer Helena Hutchins and the trial with Alec Baldwin. This is the final film that was shot by another woman cinematographer with the blessings of Hutchins' mother. The Surfer. Nicolas Cage plays a dad who returns to his childhood beach to surf with his son, but his humiliation by a group of locals creates conflict that gets expectedly violent.
TV and streaming.
The Four Seasons on Netflix, a remake of the 1981 movie about three couples who vacation together, created by Tina Fey and starring her, Steve Carell, Coleman Domingo, and Will Forte. Carême on Apple, a biopic about the acclaimed chef born during the French Revolution. The Tattooist of Auschwitz on Max. This series tells the story of an Auschwitz prisoner who was put in charge of tattooing ID numbers and fell in love with a fellow prisoner. 60 years later, the older version, Harvey Keitel, tells his story to a writer played by Melanie Linsky. Nonas on Netflix. Vince Vaughn plays a man who decides to open an Italian restaurant after his mother's death, with Lorraine Bracco, Susan Sarandon, Talia Shire, and Brenda Vaccaro as the Nonas. Another Simple Favor on Prime. Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick return in this sequel that takes place on a wedding in Capri, where a murder takes place, directed by Paul Feig. The Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. Conan O'Brien is the honoree, and for the first time, it's on Netflix. Star Wars, Tales of the Underworld on Disney, an animated series about the galaxy's criminal underworld. Next week, Richmond native and film producer Matt Gottwald will talk about his latest film that recently dropped on Hulu. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sister, including literally thousands of reviews,
Visit tvjerry.com.
That's a wrap.